How to go from fit to super fit in just 5 weeks. So this is an example of something that I did a couple of years back when I really wanted to test myself and get back to a very, very lean state. I was already pretty fit to begin, as you can see, but what does it take to actually go from a fit state to an extremely fit state? That's what we're going to talk about in this video today, because this is where it gets really, really tricky. When you think about going from fat to fit, it's actually pretty straightforward, very simple, still hard work for sure. But once you start to get into those lower body fat percentages and your body is far away from its set point, from where it's adapted to be, you start to get a lot of resistance. It can get harder and harder and harder to get there. So what does it actually take to make this happen? Well, a little bit about my background. I used to be a competitive bodybuilder, so I've been through these types of things before. However, this was different because it was in a very concentrated period of time. You know, if you're as a bodybuilder, you go through like a contest prep phase, which is anywhere from 12 to 20 weeks at times. And so you're coming down very, very gradually. To do something like this in a very short period of time is what's known as like a shotgun prep. So somebody who has done this before, getting ready for a competition, I wouldn't recommend doing it this way. But if you wanted to get ready for like an event, a vacation, a wedding, a class reunion, whatever it may be, this is something that you could do, with the caveat that, hey, this isn't sustainable. You need to have a plan for what to do after you've gone through something like this, because you are primed for fat regain. You're primed for weight regain. It's not going to go well unless you have a plan for after. So I need to say that before I dive into this, because doing something like this, again, not sustainable. It's very difficult. You are sacrificing a lot of time and effort and food in order to make this happen. But I think it's good to get an idea of what it can actually take, or what it takes to achieve a very, very lean physique where you're shredded. Like you're showing veins on your abs, you've got striations through all your muscles, and you are very, very lean. So in this scenario, I had been retired from bodybuilding for just about a year, and I kind of missed being in that lean state and actually going through that process, because as difficult as it can be, it's very satisfying and fulfilling to see the fruits of your labor. You know, to go through that process, you challenge yourself, you test yourself. And I think it's good to do that. I guess sometimes we just go through life living in a comfort zone, and we never challenge ourselves. We never push ourselves out of our comfort zone. And that keeps us weak. It keeps us stagnant. We never evolve. We never grow. And even though this is a physical venture, it does test your mind and willpower, and you can develop a lot of mental fortitude by doing something like this. So when I decided I was going to do this, again, I was about 6 weeks out from a vacation that I was going to Hawaii, and it was going to be right around my birthday. So I dove right in, and I was eating fairly consistently at the time. I was eating about 3,000 calories. Roughly. And it was pretty consistent. Like I said, I would prep my meals in advance, mostly for convenience. That's why I would do that. Wasn't like super strict about things. I would have cheat meals here and there. I wasn't like meticulous like I was as a bodybuilder. But when I decided that I was going to do this, I'm like, okay, we got to get more aggressive with the nutrition. So I kept my protein the same, and I was getting about 250 grams per day. And I was about 250 pounds at the time too. So as a key for anybody watching this, I would try to aim for about 1 gram per pound of body weight. You could go for 1 gram per pound of lean mass. That can be hard to calculate. But typically when other calories get low, like when you start to take away from fats and carbs, you do want protein to go up. This does one of two things. It keeps you satiated longer, because protein is the most satiating macronutrient. And it also can protect muscle mass. Because as you put yourself into an extreme deficit, you're doing lots of cardio, eating very little food, you could potentially start to leach away from muscle mass, and you're losing muscle in the process, which, why would you want to do that? No, you never want to do that. You never want to sacrifice muscle in an effort to lose body fat, which is a whole other topic for another day. So protein stayed the same. It was about 250. And then carbs, I cut down. I can't say exactly how much because it was so long ago, but I cut them down probably a good 40% from where they were, which is aggressive. And again, this is not the approach that you would typically take if you're trying to come down at a normal pace. But again, I had a limited time frame, and I want to get this done. I want to see how fast I can do it. I want to see what I'm made of. So I did that, and then I implemented some cardio. And again, I was already weight training 5 days per week for about 45 minutes to an hour. They weren't marathon long workouts. I wasn't there 7 days a week, 5 days a week with 2 rest days. Cardio, though, this is something that can vary quite a bit in your fat loss journey, because it's something that you can increase or decrease, whereas weight training would be a constant. Food can also increase or decrease. But in this case, with the cardio, I implemented a HIIT style cardio, which is high intensity intervals, high intensity interval training. And this would and the way that I would do it is I would do it on on an elliptical. And I would blast, go super, super intense as fast as I could with a little bit more resistance for 15 seconds. And then I would go at a normal pace with less resistance for 45 seconds. So every minute on the minute, I was running an interval. And again, I think for this type of format where you're going so frequently and you're supposed to be going all out, it's supposed to be an all out effort, not just a little bit faster, but all out, everything you've got. If you try to do that on like a treadmill or a step mill, you're not going to be able to go all out, for one. And two, even if you are, it's pretty dangerous. You can go flying off the end of that thing and get really, really hurt. But also, in order to increase the speed, you have to hit the button like a million times in order to get the speed up, and then slowing it down. At the same time, you could jump off to the side, but it's just not ideal for interval training. It's great for steady state, but not for intervals. You could also do it on a spin bike, and you could also run outside. The other alternative would be to push a prowler, like one of those weighted sleds, with minimal weight on there, because you're not after it for weight, you're after it for speed. So those are some options for HIIT. So I started doing that 20 minutes twice a day. I would do one in the morning, and I would do another one after my workout. So I'd work out around midday. Okay, so I'd do one when I wake up for 20 minutes. And this is what I did for the first week, and I would increase actually each and every week. So I did that for the first week, and after week 1, 7 days into it, and I should add this, but that I had committed to doing this on social media. I said, hey, I'm going to do this cut. I'm going to take you guys along on the journey so you can experience what I'm going through as I do this. And so that was my public commitment. This was public accountability. And I regretted doing that a couple days after, because I'm like, oh my gosh, this sucks. Like, I had not gotten into the groove of things, and it was really hard. I was feeling exhausted already from doing cardio twice a day when I was only accustomed to doing about 12 minutes 3 or 4 times a week. And obviously I more than doubled that. I lowered my food, and I was feeling it within those first 4 or 5 days. But I'm like, well, I committed. I put myself out there. I've got to do this now. That just kind of highlights the importance of accountability. It can really help you push through those times where you really don't want to do it. So at the end of the week, what were my results? Not much. It was kind of a wah, wah, wah moment. I didn't really see much change. Weight hadn't really changed. Maybe it was down a pound. Who knows? I wasn't necessarily after weight loss. I was after fat loss. But I couldn't see anything, which is pretty normal. It's only been 7 days, right? I think oftentimes we had the expectation that we're going to see huge changes in a short amount of time, but that's not based in reality. That's just based on emotion and what we expect to have happen. That's not realistic. Now, in week 2, I bumped up the cardio to 22 minutes twice a day. I think I kept the food the same. It's possible I may have lowered it a little bit, but that's a little premature, and probably a little premature with the cardio as well. But again, had a shortened time frame here. So at the end of week 2, I could start to see something. Right. But it was pretty minimal. And I was taking pictures, but you compare side to side, you're like, okay, maybe a little bit leaner, but not all that much. Week 3, I increased the cardio up to another 2 minutes. So it was up to 24 minutes twice a day. And food, I think I lowered a little bit more. Again, protein I kept high, fats and carbs kept whittling them down. And at the end of week 3, going into week 4, you could see change. At that point, it was noticeable. It wasn't like super dramatic, right? And it never is. If you're already in a fit state, going from fit to super fit, the changes are very subtle. Whereas if you have a lot of weight to lose, at that point, if you went at things very aggressively, you'd see inches off. You would see the number on the scale come down significantly, just because there's a lot more to lose. But when you're working with such low numbers and body fat percentage is already pretty low, it's going to be a very gradual process of change, even when you're going aggressively. And this is accelerated because of how hard I'm pushing here, but it is still progressive and kind of gradual, especially when you see yourself every day. At the end of week 4, going into week 4, again, I bumped it up another 2 minutes. So 26 minutes, 2 times a day for cardio, and food probably came down just a little bit more. And at the end of week 4, I was like, oh, wow. Okay. It was pretty dramatic at that point. And that's where I was like, this is going much better than I would have anticipated. Like I didn't think I could get there this quickly. And at the end of week 4, that's when I reached out to a photographer. I'm like, hey, you know what? Maybe we could do a photo shoot at the end of this. I think it might be a good idea to just document this, because one regret that I have is that I never did a photo shoot when I won my IFBB Pro card. I honestly, I didn't have the energy for it. They're very exhausting to do photo shoots, and I just didn't give a shit. So I didn't do that, but I regretted it later. I'm like, man, I wish I would have documented that. So maybe I can do it now. So I contacted a photographer and set it up, and I was out at a competition with some clients in San Diego. And that's when I reached out to him, came back the next week, Had one more week to try and dial it in a little bit further, which is actually a week earlier than what I had anticipated, because I anticipated this to be a 6-week venture. Turned out it only took me 5 weeks to get there. Did a little bit of dehydration with some over-the-counter herbs like uva ursi and dandelion root, and that helped purge a little bit of water, make the skin a little bit thinner, and peak for the photo shoot. And I did the photo shoot. And so the after state, that was, I think, the day of the shoot. And you can tell I have a spray tan on there, which helps everything look a little bit better. And there was a huge, huge change. The weight loss was maybe between 8 to 10 pounds in that time frame. And I actually went and got a DEXA scan at the end of this. I wish I would have done a beginning DEXA scan, but I didn't. And the DEXA scan showed that I was 6.5%. 6.6 is what I believe it was. And I remember looking at that. No, it was lower than that. I believe I was 6.4 or 6.3. I was within like 0.2 or 0.3 from the lowest I had ever registered, even after going through a very long prep, where I think the lowest I've ever registered on a DEXA scan is 6.1%, which is extremely lean. You really can't get much leaner than that, because the fat that's left is the fat surrounding your organs, keeping you alive, right? So people will state other numbers, but that's usually like the caliper method, which will show that like, hey, you're 2%. You actually would be dead if you had 2% body fat. You can't achieve that and live. I mean, there might be some anomalies out there, but for the most part, you're not going to get lower than 5 or 6% on a true DEXA scan. So that was the process. So it is possible. So when you look at this and you look at the time involved, the effort involved, it was a lot. It really was. By the end of this, I was pretty tired. I was ready to be done with what I was doing because it was so aggressive. Because by the end of those 5 weeks, I was doing 2 28-minute sessions of HIIT on top of my hour-long workout and then eating very little. I don't think my calories ever got lower than about 2,300 calories, but that's pretty low for me. I was a pretty big guy. That was very much in a deficit for me and what I was trying to do. So if this was you and you had an event coming up and you wanted to try and lose weight quickly, you could do something similar. But it's very important to have a plan of action after. Because I think what happens so often is that people try to jump all the way in and they're like, I want to lose fat and I want to lose it quick. And so they do something very extreme. And this is the problem that you see with diets out there where they give you this cookie cutter plan that just starves the crap out of you. Because that's a guaranteed way to help people lose weight. And they can show you, hey, I got you some success. Look at the end of your journey. You lost 30 pounds because you're only eating 1,000 calories. Well, duh. If you're starving yourself and you're not eating very much food, then of course you're going to lose weight. But is that the appropriate way for you to lose weight? No, probably not. Because it's way too aggressive. You're going to experience some severe metabolic adaptation, severe hormonal output degradation, and you're going to have some problems at the end of this. And that's why everybody regains the weight way faster than they lost it to begin with, because they experienced such a metabolic adaptation in the process of doing that. Plus, their body wasn't even adapted to the after state that you got to. And it created this scenario where once you start increasing your intake, the weight's just going to come surging back. And if you've ever experienced a rebound like that from a diet, you know exactly what I'm talking about. It's not fun. It's very discouraging. And that discouragement leads to us eating our feelings, which only makes it worse. And then just problem compounds and compounds and compounds. So the best way to come out of that would be to perform a reverse diet. And that's another video that I'll be doing about that, because it's a topic that everybody needs to be aware of no matter what kind of diet you do. And with all the diets that are out there and all the coaches and trainers and all these different programs that you can find, nobody accounts for what's going to happen after you've reached your goal. What happens after you've hit your target weight? What do you do then? If you just go back to what you've been always doing before, like going back to eating normal, as we like to say, then you're going to return to your previous normal state. Because typically in the time period it took you to lose the weight, say you had to lose 50 pounds and it took you a year to do so. Awesome. Your body is still not adapted to that. Let's say you went from 200 pounds to 150. It's not adapted to 150 pounds yet. It's going to have to spend some time at that weight, maintaining your habits before it becomes comfortable at that weight and at that body composition. This is like resetting your set point, taking it from where it used to be 200 pounds down to 150 pounds, maybe 30% body fat down to 18% body fat, whatever it may be. Right? But if we go back to our previous habits that got us into that mess to begin with, then you're automatically going to gain that weight back. I guarantee it. And it's going to be very ugly. And you're going to still have a suppressed metabolic rate, suppressed hormones, which is only going to exacerbate the situation and make it way worse. So if you are really fit and you want to take things to the extreme, take things, even if it's just for a photo shoot or a vacation or a competition or anything like that, you could do something similar to this. If you really want to make it last, I would advise not doing something like this. It should be more gradual. It should be more progressive in nature in terms of how much and how often you're increasing your food, decreasing your food and increasing your cardio. And there should have a much longer time horizon in which you're performing that shift, that transformation. But anyway, I hope you found this useful. If you did, I would love for you to drop a comment. You can subscribe. I'm new on YouTube. I've been in the business for 25 years. I've had over 8,000 transformations. I've been doing this for a very long time. I'm super passionate about it. I want everyone to have optimal health, and I want it to last. I hate temporary transformations. I don't think they work. So give me a follow, drop a comment, and I'll see you in the next video.